So again, thank you all for attending today's Vice President's webcast. My name is Katherine Rogers, and I am the Chapter and Regional Operations Specialist here at Sigma Theta Tau headquarters in Indianapolis. If I have not had the chance to meet you previously, it's nice to see you on the call today, and I look forward to hopefully working with you in the future. Please know that all of the information from today's webcast is coming directly from the chapter bylaws. So we are still currently referencing the 2015-2017 chapter bylaws, and everything that I'm going to share with you today is coming from there. The 2017-2019 chapter bylaws will be available in early 2018 after the bylaws amendments discussion and vote takes place at Biennial Convention in Indianapolis later this fall. I want to start by first going through a brief overview of all of the Board of Directors positions and their responsibilities. I find that if everyone on the board has a good sense of what all of the officers are responsible for, it creates board cohesiveness and helps with accountability. So we'll go through all of that first, as well as some vacancy information, things like that, before we go really in depth into the Vice President's role. So when we say Board of Directors, this is who we're referring to. We're talking about these voting board members, so your president, the president-elect, if your chapter so chooses to use that position, it is optional, the vice president, the treasurer, the counselor, and the secretary. Again, besides the president-elect, all of these positions are required. They all must be active dues-paying members, both of STTI and of the chapter with which they are serving. And all of these must be elected by ballot. And these are your voting leaders or your voting board members. Just some general officer responsibilities. These are pretty self-explanatory, but obviously we expect that as a chapter leader, you participate in business meetings, whether that's, board meetings, whether that's chapter programming and benefits. We expect that you participate in chapter activities and communications. It's expected that you submit reports at each board meeting related to your specific functions for your role. So if you're the vice president at each board meeting, you should give a rundown of basically what you've been working on since the last board meeting so that everyone knows where you're at with your role and if there's anything that they can support you on. You should prepare your office for transition at the end of the term and help facilitate that transition and orientation for the incoming person who's taking over your position. So just to get briefly into the basic responsibilities of all of these voting board members, again, this information all comes directly from the bylaws. So your president is the chief representative of the chapter. They will work to administer the business of the chapter, including board of directors meetings, so they will schedule those and put together the agendas for those meetings. The president can serve as an ex officio member of committees, except for the Leadership Succession Committee. The president may not be involved with the Leadership Succession Committee in any capacity. The president should also work to ensure that the submission of required reports are done for us at headquarters, as well as any IRS reports or anything of that nature. Notice that says they ensure the submission, not that they actually do the submitting themselves. They should also ensure participation in all House of Delegate sessions. It's not expected that the president serve as either an electronic or a convention delegate themselves, but they should make sure that the chapter is represented at all of those House of Delegates sessions. The vice president the president-elect is an optional position. If your chapter has enough willing volunteers that you can elect a president-elect, we certainly encourage that. It really helps that board transition and turnover go smoothly. If your chapter uses a president-elect, they essentially are shadowing the president for 1 to 2 years, so they're kind of an intern to your president. Their main role is to prepare themselves so that when they go to succeed into the role as president at the end of the current president's term, that they're fully prepared and feel comfortable with the role and their responsibilities and expectations. To make sure that that president-elect feels comfortable and is prepared to take on the role of president, the chapter can assign them specific duties and responsibilities as they see fit. So, for example, some of our chapters who utilize president-elects are using them in some of the following ways. They might have them work on collection of data for an award or a report. So maybe Chapter Key Award, that's a great way for them to get a sense of chapter operations, get to know the membership. They can have the president-elect serve on the welcoming team at chapter events. Again, getting to know the membership, putting their face out there so that when they're president, people already know who they are and feel comfortable approaching them and communicating with them. And they can also help the Leadership Succession Committee recruit committee members. Again, tapping into that membership base, getting to know who is a member of your chapter and what their specific skills are. But again, specific responsibilities for the president-elect can be determined by your own individual chapter. This is what I'm sure you're all here for. You want to know the roles and responsibilities of the vice president. This is, again, just a brief overview. We will get more in depth here in just a minute. But the vice president performs the presidential duties in the president's absence, including if the president vacates the role. There is some confusion. Sometimes people think that if their chapter has a vice president and a president-elect both, that it's the president-elect that takes over the presidential role if the president vacates that position, and that's not the case. It's always the vice president that takes over the presidency, and that is, again, per bylaws. The vice president's main task is to oversee the planning of at least 2 required chapter events or programs each fiscal year. The vice president can also serve as committee chair as needed, and at-large chapters are welcome to elect a vice president to represent each school, just to ensure that programming is spread out demographically and that all of your members are being served with your programming. If you are an at-large chapter that has multiple vice presidents, you should put together a policy and procedure about which vice president will take over the presidency should that need arise, so that you're not scrambling to select from multiple vice presidents if your president does step down. The treasurer, of course, manages the chapter funds. This person will work to prepare the annual budget and develop fiscal policies and procedures. The treasurer should present current financials to the board at each meeting, and that can be just as simple as a rundown of what's in the bank account, what was brought in since the last board meeting, what was spent since the last board meeting, just so that the rest of the board is aware and comfortable with the financials of the chapter. The treasurer is also tasked with completing the financial section of the annual report, that verification of fees form, so basically setting the chapter dues amount, and submitting the IRS Form 990 each year, and that's for our U.S. chapters only. The counselor, fun fact, is the only board member that must be faculty at the chapter's affiliated School of Nursing. Any of the other positions can be a student, they can be a nurse leader or a community member. They do not have to be faculty. The counselor must be a faculty member. The reason behind that is because they do lead the process for inducting students and nurse leaders, but they must be able to legally access those student records from the university, so that's why they must be faculty. The counselor will work to, again, secure and verify the eligibility data, both from the school and from any nurse leader applicants. They'll use the online induction system to upload their candidates and use that system to communicate with the candidates, track responses and attendance, and help to prepare the induction ceremony. The counselor also serves on the governance committee. Many of our chapters will have the counselor serve as the governance chair and the counselor, kind of a dual role. That's absolutely fine. It's however your chapter wants to handle it. At-large chapters, so those chapters who are affiliated with more than one school of nursing, must elect a counselor for each school. So if you have 3 different universities in your chapter, you must have a counselor from each of those 3 universities. And that's to comply with privacy laws and to be able to access those student data. So that's really crucial. The secretary, of course, records and distributes the meeting minutes for each board of directors meetings. Ideally, they would distribute those meetings to the board and to the chapter membership, just for transparency's sake. The secretary should keep official records of all chapter activities. They will prepare and distribute correspondence to the membership in a variety of different avenues, via email, via the chapter website, STTI Connect, what have you. And the secretary should update the officer and committee chair report, which is located in the chapter management system, after an election, so that the most up-to-date list of chapter leaders is posted in the chapter management system. So those are your voting board members. But as I'm sure you are aware, there are some standing required committees that are listed in bylaws that each chapter must have as well. The governance committee takes care mostly of bylaws and any chapter eligibility issues. And the leadership succession committee works with leadership development and runs the election process for the chapter. And both of those committees are required. Delegates are also required. The 2 big ones are the 2 convention delegates. Each chapter is bestowed with 2 votes at the biennial convention House of Delegates, and so you must have someone to cast both of those votes on behalf of the chapter. You may or may not remember, but at the last biennial convention in Las Vegas in 2015, the House voted to remove the electronic House of Delegates from the bylaws, except for in special cases. So those electronic delegates will only be called upon in special cases, and will certainly let you know if your chapter is expected to provide us with electronic delegates. The 2 big ones are those convention delegates. If your chapter does not currently have their convention delegates listed, you might go back to them and make sure that they're having those conversations to decide who is going to represent the chapter at convention later this year. Chapters are also welcome to elect or appoint optional leaders if they have willing and able participants from their membership. Some of these optional positions include archivists, different committees such as an awards committee, a finance committee, a membership involvement chair or a membership involvement committee, publicity, research chair, and some chapters will appoint a webmaster as well. Again, all of these are positions that you are available to utilize with your own chapter if you have willing and able volunteers. Just a quick note on any vacancies. Again, if the president vacates his or her role, then the vice president fills in for that person until the next regular election. It's just like with our federal government. If something happens to the president, the vice president will take over. Any other vacancies can be appointed by the board to have those slots filled until the next election. going to do a quick poll now, so I'm going to launch that. Please take a moment to cast your vote in our first poll. All right, so take a moment. True or false? Officers must be active dues-paying members before they can serve as a chapter leader. Take a second to cast your vote. Leave it open for about 5 more seconds here. Nice job. 100% of you voted true that all officers must be voting board members before they can serve. Nicely done. So now we'll get into more of the scope of responsibilities for you all as vice presidents for your chapter. As you can probably remember from a few slides back, here's your 3 main duties as vice president. One is to perform the presidential duties in the president's absence, including a vacancy. So that means if they step down completely or if they're just unable to attend a board meeting or a program, something like that. You will also work to oversee the planning of at least 2 required chapter events or programs each fiscal year, and you'll serve as a committee chair as needed. So we'll break each of those down further and go through them in depth so that you feel comfortable with your role as vice president. So in the case that you need to take over the presidential duties for whatever reason, there's some tips on how to make that transition go as smoothly as possible, both for you, the rest of the board, and for your chapter members. So again, for chapters with multiple vice presidents, be sure to document which vice president will assume the role as president so that if that time comes, you're ready and you can move forward without, a lot of debate or confusion. You should become familiar as possible with presidential tasks. So if that means you need to be CC'd on some additional emails or receive, additional presidential reports from your president, what have you, do whatever you need to do to become as familiar as possible with the roles and responsibilities of the president. So be proactive. Again, collaborate with the president regularly as much as you can. If you have time for one-on-one meetings, that's fantastic. You can obviously request to be copied on correspondence if you feel like that would be helpful. Make sure that you know how to access chapter records. So if there's a Gmail account or a Google Drive that your chapter uses, make sure that you know how to access those and log into those so that you can use them if you need to take over the role of president. And be sure you know where and how to access online officer resources for the president, including the president's webcast. Just so that you know, all of our online officer resources are located in the All Chapter Officers work group on the Circle. So that's where I will post the recording and slides from today's webcast. That's where the President's webcast and slides are also posted, along with tons of other resources, both for your role and for the chapter board as a whole. And this one kind of goes without saying, but the best way to be prepared if you need to take over the presidency is to stay involved with chapter initiative and activities. So, keep up to date on what's going on. Make sure you have a good sense of the happenings and chapter operations and policies and procedures for your chapter so that in the event that you need to take over the presidency, you feel capable and comfortable with doing that. Per bylaws, each chapter is required to have a minimum of at least 2 events or programs for their members each fiscal year. And that's probably the biggest part of the vice presidency, is planning and putting on those 2 programs for your membership. All of your chapter programs must support the mission of the society. And for those of you who don't have the mission memorized yet, the mission is advancing world health and celebrating nursing excellence in scholarship, leadership, and service. So that's kind of open to interpretation. Your chapter can plan programs and benefits that both meet the mission of STTI and both serve your members' wants and needs and help develop them as a professional nurse. When planning your programs, convenience is key. So think about some ways that you can make your programming as convenient as possible for your members. If it's convenient for them, they are more likely to show up or attend. So is every event, program, and chapter activity at the same time and location? If so, is that helpful? Do people remember where to go, what date and time? Or is that harming your attendance? Do you need to actually mix it up? Get to know your membership and what they need so that you can make things as easy as possible for them. Do you know what community locations would work for members? Is the School of Nursing convenient for people? Or are your members demographically spread out and maybe the university or School of Nursing isn't quite as accessible and you need to think about a different location? If people are demographically spread out and they're not all in the same town or even in the same state, are there any virtual platforms you could use to supplement in-person gatherings? I'll give you a hint. We're using one today. We're using GoToWebinar, and a lot of our chapters are using systems like GoToWebinar to present and put on programming for their members, as well as hold some of their annual business meetings or board meetings, and it's going really well for them. So think about the demographics and the needs of your membership and if you should utilize some of these virtual platforms. Those can be done live, like what we're doing today, or asynchronous. So that could be you have someone recording, like I'm doing today, and then you can post that recording for your members either on your website, share a link via email, what have you. But there are ways to meet your members where they're at. The best way to offer programming that your members will be interested and engaged in is to offer programs that they want. And how do you know what they want? You have to ask them. So we recommend surveying your members regularly. Many survey programs are free or free up to a certain number of questions or a certain number of survey recipients and come with tutorials. So take advantage of some of those. Obtain a current mailing or email contact list from your roster report tool in the chapter management system. Does everyone have an email address? Are there any bad addresses? Take a look at those when deciding how you want to survey your members, if you're doing it electronically or via mail. Here's some of the sample questions that we've seen included on some chapter surveys in recent months, and they're incredibly helpful and will provide you with some really useful data that you can take back and look over when planning your chapter programs and benefits. Have you attended a chapter event in the last year? If yes, how was it? What'd you think? If no, why not? Was it the timing was bad? Was it the location wasn't convenient? Were you not interested in the topic? And we need to, as a chapter, think about changing that up. This one's probably my favorite question. What keeps you up at night in relation to your job? Kind of a heavy question, makes people think, and hopefully you'll get some honest answers. But if you do get answers on that question, it's really going to tell you what your members need to hear about, learn about, what you need to provide to them to help them essentially sleep better and then be better at their job, so a better nurse or a better student. Ask your members what type of event or program would they be most likely to attend. So do they want networking or social? Do they want continuing ed? Do they want research-based? Are they looking for community service? Ask them what they want, because what you're offering might not be what your members are wanting to get from the chapter. As vice president, you should always work with your treasurer. Obviously, planning programs takes, potentially a large portion of your budget, so you should always have those budget considerations in the back of your mind. So what components of your programming goals will have a cost associated with them? Sit down and kind of brainstorm and jot some of these out. Is that communication and publicity? So do you need printing and postage? Are you renting a venue? So is there a rental fee? Are you having to decorate? Are you paying any author or speaker fees or honorariums? Any volunteer gifts? Are you serving food and beverage? I always say if you feed them, they will come. So take in those refreshment costs when you're thinking about your budget and your planning. And is there any additional insurance needed? If you're renting a venue, is there any additional insurance? If you're doing community service, is there some additional insurance riders that you need? If so, contact us, but keep that in mind too. And what resources do you have for free, or could you get at a discount? Can you get a sponsorship, a local, clinic or a hospital even? Would they be willing to sponsor? Would the School of Nursing be willing to sponsor? Is there a small business owner in your membership that would be willing to donate something? Ask about members who are authors or speakers. You could ask this in your survey and find out who's an expert on what topic and if they'd be willing to present. Technology and publicity tools are often free. Social media is free most of the time. Your chapter website that the chapter has access to, we do charge a small fee for that, but basically it's taken out of your chapter checks, and so that's essentially free for you all to use. Are there any free community locations? Can you be on campus for nominal or no cost? Email communication, is that free? Is that the best way to handle it rather than printing and mailing information out to your members? Can you get a sponsor for attendee handouts or volunteer gifts? If you're using a virtual platform, something like a GoToWebinar, or if you are paying any subscriptions with a larger company, do they offer a nonprofit discount? Look into that. Think about how you can be a good steward of your member dollar. It's always important to think outside the budget when you are planning your events. So think about some community events that you could put on. Is there a local Habitat for Humanity build or a homeless shelter or other local opportunities that you could all volunteer together? That would be hopefully free to just volunteer or a nominal cost. Are there any community health clinics that need volunteers? Can you collaborate with school, university, clinic, hospital initiatives? Just be a part of, maybe be a sponsor or split the cost down the middle with any other organizations. Think about informal events too. Not everything has to be formal, sit down, fancy dinner. Have some social events at local hotels or community locations. Have a happy hour gathering. Now, the chapter shouldn't provide any alcohol, but you can certainly organize a happy hour gathering or a get-together at a local restaurant or watering hole. Have a coffee talk at a coffee shop. Do a live chat on Twitter. Twitter's free, and I bet a lot of your younger members are on Twitter. So what are some ways that you can maximize your output of your membership benefits without draining your budget completely? At STTI, we do a lot of lunch and learn presentations as a staff. So HR will bring someone in and present, and we bring our lunch and we all eat together. Is that something that you could put together for your chapter? And now for the logistics of planning your events, some things to keep in mind and consider when you're planning your events. Obviously, before your event, give plenty of advance notice. Remind me frequently. They say that it takes people 7 times of hearing something before they actually internalize and remember it. So remind people frequently and in different mannerisms and through different methods. So are you going to do mailed newsletters or postcards? Post on social media as well. Post on the chapter website discussion forum. Send out emails. And be as detailed as possible when sharing, the details about your event. Let them know if there's a dress code. There's nothing worse than coming to an event and being either overdressed or underdressed. Make sure that people are comfortable with what they are expected to wear. If it's cocktail attire, if it's casual, let them know. Let them know about parking. If it's paid, free parking, street parking, if there's a garage, what have you, what lot to park in. Let them know the exact address, building, room, so that they have an easy time finding you. Or if it's a virtual program, make sure that they have all of the online access codes or the teleconference line, what have you. Provide all of that to them in plenty of advance. Let them know what to expect, if there's something they should prepare in advance so that they have that and come with that in hand if needed. Let them know if it's members only or if they are welcome to bring a friend, kind of a recruit a friend, recruit a member campaign. Can they bring someone along with them? Is it family friendly? Things like that. During your event, you should also make it as welcoming and helpful as possible for your members. So have a welcoming team to greet attendees, hand out name tags. If there's any attendee gifts or handouts, have those people available at the door, or directing people if maybe the location's a little confusing, have some people out there to help guide people. Make your members feel comfortable. Introduce any speakers and special guests, so community partners, sponsors, board members. Make sure that those people are visible and that your members know kind of who's running the show and who they need to reach out to if they have a question or concern about membership or what have you. And we recommend having a calendar of upcoming events and contact information available to hand out, along with any opportunities to volunteer or lead the next program. So as they're going out the door, make sure there's a way that you can get them in the door or on the call next time around as well. After your event, have a volunteer follow up via email just to thank them for attending. Let them know that it didn't go unnoticed. That's going to drive them to come back to another event. We recommend surveying attendees to see what they thought of the event, what they would change. Ask for some of that constructive criticism so that you can make your programs as good as possible for your members. Post about the event in the chapter discussion forum so that those people who were unable to come kind of get a rundown of what happened and feel like they're in the know. And that also sparks a conversation for those people who did attend, and they can continue those conversations or share their impressions with the rest of the group. The third task for the vice president is to serve on committees as the committee chair as needed. So as a board member, you have the ability to convene a committee to help share responsibilities. The entire board should discuss which committees might be needed or most beneficial to achieve overall goals. So do you need a communications committee to work with your secretary, a publicity committee, also to work with secretary and you as vice president to get the word out? Do you need a membership involvement committee to help engage members, answer questions, make sure that you're meeting their needs? Do you as vice president need a program planning committee to help you with the big task of putting on these 2 programs each year? If so, bring your recommendations and your needs to the board so that you can discuss which are most needed, how you're going to recruit members for that, and how those would meet the overall chapter goals. We'll get into our second poll here. So again, please take a second to answer your question, or answer my question. If the vice president vacates their role, who becomes president? President-elect, vice president, or it's by appointment? Take a second to share your thoughts and your answer there. So far, it's 100% correct answers. That's awesome. Let me leave it open for just about 5 more seconds here. Awesome. Nicely done. Again, 100% correct answers. You guys are on it today. If the president vacates the role, the vice president takes over until the end of that current president's term. We do have a great deal of resources available for you in the All Chapter Officers Work Group, which is located on the circle. I've got that website located here on the slides for you. It's thecircle.nursingsociety.org, and let me send that through. Whoops, excuse me. There you go. I'll send this through to the chat for you all so that you can click along if you're on your computer at work or at home. And it's just thecircle.nursingsociety.org. You'll need to make sure that you are logged into that website. From there, you'll click on groups and then my groups, and then you'll see the All Chapter Officers Work Group as an available choice for you. The All Chapter Officers Work Group is where we house all of the leader-specific resources. So anything that you might need to help make your job easier, we're going to post it here. Staff posts a great deal of resources. Other chapter leaders and other members will post resources. There's announcements and events. There's things that you can download. There's all kinds of stuff in there. So if you're not comfortable or familiar with the All Chapter Officers Work Group, I would encourage you to go to the website, click around. You can't break the website, I promise you. Get comfortable with it, get to know where the items are that you need. If there's something that you're looking for specifically in the All Chapter Officers Work Group and you can't find it, give us a call. We're happy to help you track that down. There are some new updates on the Circle and on your chapter's website that we want to make sure that you're aware of. It can, well, both of these things can certainly make your life as vice president much easier. You can now add volunteer positions directly to your chapter website. So if you go to your chapter website, which is just the Greek name of your chapter, .nursingsociety.org. So for example, I've got Delta Xi chapter pulled up here. Their website is just deltaxi.nursingsociety.org. If you go to your chapter website and you're logged in the top right corner, you'll see this settings button here. Clicking on that will open up this box for you, and then you'll see volunteer and then manage opportunities. So as a board member, you can come in and add any opportunities that you might have. So if you're looking for people to serve as a welcoming committee at your next event, come in and add that as an opportunity, and then your members can come and apply for those volunteer positions directly on your website. If you're looking for speakers for your next event, put that as a volunteer opportunity. When your chapter is getting ready for, your elections, make sure that you're utilizing this volunteer management portal here on your chapter website. If you have any further questions or want some additional training on the volunteer opportunities, call and let us know. We're happy to walk you through that. Our chapters have been asking for this for years, and we're happy to say that you now have email capability directly from your chapter website. So it used to be that there was no email capability on any of our websites or in the management system. You had to basically pull a list of your active members and send the email yourself. That has been updated, and you can now email active members from your site directly. So again, once you're at your chapter website, you'll go back to that settings button, and then under administration, you'll see email community members. Community members is slightly confusing, that wording. Basically, it's just going to email any of your active members. So anyone that's active is going to be subscribed to your chapter website. They're going to get the email. It's very simple. You just go through step by step. It's as easy as sending an email from Outlook or Gmail or whatever program you use. It's very user-friendly. If you are comfortable with your chapter website at all, you probably are already aware of the discussion forum that's on your website and the fact that posts on that discussion forum generate an email to your members. So just want to clarify the difference between that email function and the discussion forum for you all. So if you use that email function, that's sent immediately. It allows members to unsubscribe, which makes your chapter compliant with federal spam laws. There is no special formatting that can be done in the email function. It's just very, very simple. So keep that in mind if you're wanting to include links or make it, include a photo, anything like that, then a discussion post might be your better bet. And with the email function, replies are sent privately to the chapter leader who sent the message. So if I'm the Delta Xi Vice President and I send out an email through the website, any replies are going to come directly to me. So I should make sure that I'm comfortable answering that. If it's, on a subject matter that is kind of someone else's territory, I might want to make sure that that person sends it so that they can field those questions that come back in from the members. On the other hand, the discussion forum sends a little bit differently. It's sent based on the subscription. So all of your members are automatically subscribed to your chapter website, and their email subscription default is Daily Digest, which basically comes at the end of the day, and they get all of the day's discussion in one nice rundown format email. So they're not getting 20 different emails if there's 20 different discussion posts. So if you're looking for something that's being sent immediately, email is probably going to be your best bet. If it doesn't have to be immediate, then you might just post a discussion, because that discussion post allows some formatting. So you can include links, you can change the font, you can include pictures, things like that. The discussion post also allows your members to unsubscribe, so you're also in compliance with federal spam laws using that discussion forum. And replies to any discussion forums are posted publicly for all members to join in the conversation, so everybody can see that. So just keep that in mind too. So use these two offerings that we have on your chapter website. Pick which one is best for each situation and each communication, and please do make the most of your chapter websites. If you have any questions on the email function versus discussion forum, or you need training on your chapter website, please don't hesitate to call us. We're happy to set that up and walk through that with you. There's also a Leader Lines upgrade coming soon. If you're not familiar, Leader Lines is a monthly email that goes out to all of our chapter leaders. It has position-specific news. So as Vice President, you will have access to any pertinent information specific for the Vice President. You will not have to wade through 10 different news items for different roles to find yours. Yours will be right there for you. So you, for example, won't get treasurer news to confuse you or bog you down. You're just going to get what you need. We include important dates and trainings in there, including things like today's webcast that we're doing, so that people are getting reminders for those. We're going to start including some chapter-specific alerts and notifications, so things like the status of any report submissions from your chapter. Things like your active member counts, things like that will be included just for your knowledge each time that you get this email. There will also be any news from your regional coordinator. If your regional coordinator puts something in your leader lines to communicate with you each month, you'll get that in that email as well. So keep your eyes open on future leader lines for that upgrade. Just some upcoming dates of importance for you all. On July 6th and July 11th, we have two offerings for the Making the Most of Your Circle website webcast. So if you do want to take some time to learn how to make the most of your website, edit it, things like that, plan to attend one of those two dates. Those are posted in the All Chapter Officers work group. August 2nd is the deadline to submit the chapter annual report, which is required for all chapters. So make sure that your chapter's on top of that. October 1st is the deadline to submit a nomination for the Showcase of Regional Excellence if your chapter is choosing to submit for that recognition. And then, of course, the 44th Biennial Convention, which has required House of Delegates participation, runs from October 28th through November 1st, and that's here in Indianapolis. Any questions over anything that I went over today, whether it's position specific, anything for your knowledge? You can always use that chat feature, or if you have a mic and speakers today, you can request that your line be unmuted. Let me know what questions you might have. Oh, good question. Asking if the July 6th and July 7th webcast on making the most of your website will be available and recorded. And yes, I believe that Michelle will record those and share those in the All Chapter Officers work group. So if you're unable, keep your eyes open for those recordings later in July. What other questions do you have for me? Not seeing any questions come through at this time, so if you need to hop off the call and go back about your day, I'll thank you again for your time and for your service to your chapter and to STTI. Keep an eye out for this recording to be posted in the All Chapter Officers work group. I will stay on the line for just a few more moments in case we have some additional questions come through, but thank you all so much again, and if there's something that we can help you with, please don't hesitate to call. Caroline had a good question. She's asking how to post an event on the chapter website. Let me just show you how to do that real quick since we've got extra time and people are still on the line. So I'm just going to pull up, we've been talking about Delta Xi and use them as an example. I'm just going to pull up their website here. To the right side of the screen here, you'll see this upcoming events section. Your chapter will have that as well. And then you'll see the add event button. That's where you will go to add an event to your chapter website. This is what it looks like when you actually go to add an event. You'll walk through each step. You'll see what's required. What's required is in red here. So you'll have a title, a type, the date and time, all of that. You'll put contact information if needed, and then you can put your event description down here, including some photos or a link or what have you. And then if you need to link to a web page or a website, so maybe it's a virtual call, you can put the web link in there. Then once you're done, you can either save and continue editing or finish, and it will post I'm obviously going to click cancel. I'm not going to hijack Delta Xi's website for them, but once you save and post, then it will show up under upcoming events here on your website. Good question. Any other questions I can answer for you today? Not seeing any questions come through. So again, thank you all so much for making time out of your busy schedules today. If there's something that you ever need related to your role or your chapter, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at headquarters. Thanks and have a great rest of your day.